All right, welcome back to the channel, and thank you so much to Epidemic Sound for sponsoring today's video. If you would like to get 50% off, that's 50% off the personal plan, then make sure you use the code Daniel50 at checkout and choose the annual personal plan. That's Daniel50 for 50% off. That is quite the deal. Do not miss out and go to the link in the description. And now on with the tutorial. Now in today's tutorial, I want to show you a couple of editing techniques that I think are very overlooked. These are simple little things you can do in your videos that just take it to the next level. I know I say that a lot, but trust me, this is one you don't want to miss. So a little while back now, I uploaded my first ever YouTube short. It was a very basic video about the Chronos high-speed camera, and from an editing standpoint, this YouTube short wasn't anything too complicated. In fact, it is a pretty simple edit, but there is a little something going on behind the scenes that I want to let you in on. So this is the video in the timeline here in Final Cut. You can see it's a pretty straightforward video, nothing too complicated. But the first thing I want to point out is that when I filmed these shots and sequenced it and recorded the voiceover, I had planned for a pause, a moment of tension where I say, but with the Chronos 2.1, things look a little bit different. Then we have that dramatic pause where it goes black for a second, and then we get into the montage of all those slow motion clips. Now the reason this is important is because the entire video is hinged on this dramatic pause, this sort of build-up and suspense, that quick pause to create tension, and then you have the payoff, which is all those slow motion shots. Now in a perfect world, it would be great to find a single song that just has the perfect build-up, pause, and drop that matches to your video. But if you edit videos and you do it often, you know that it is a little bit more complicated than that. I've said it in the past and I'm gonna say it again, unless you have hired a composer or a producer to produce an original soundtrack for your videos, it is going to be very challenging to find that perfect song. So what we have to do is come up with other creative ways to make the music and soundtracks that are already out there work for us. As a matter of fact, the music I used in this very YouTube short before and after that dramatic pause are actually two completely different songs by completely different artists. Now, typically, if somebody were to attempt something like this with two completely different songs back to back, you would probably end up with a transition that is pretty awkward and disjointed. But I want to show you what you can do to actually make this work out pretty seamlessly. Now, I already knew for the start of this video that I wanted something that would kind of build up as it went on, something that would create suspense and tension. So naturally, I went onto Epidemic Sound and I started by filtering songs by mood, and of course, I went with suspense. Still a lot of options here, so I narrowed it down further by adding chasing as another mood parameter. And like always, I just listened to a few of these tracks until I found one that was in the wheelhouse of the kind of vibe I was going for. In this case, it was Peripheral Vision by Brendan Moeller. Now, this track had the feel I was looking for, something about it I can't quite put into words. Maybe it's the arpeggiator, is that how you say it? Arpeggiator on the synth where the notes are kind of repeating. But despite this track having the right feel, it still wasn't quite exactly what I was looking for as far as a little bit more of a build-up, more of that tension building to an apex. So what I actually did was I went down here and clicked on this little icon that shows me similar tracks to the one we've selected, and then using the new ear tool on Epidemic Sound, I selected that specific part of the track that I liked so that it would automatically show me other songs with similar characteristics, but only to the part of the song I selected. Now, this is something that happens all the time when I am looking for music online for my videos. I always find a song that I like a certain part of it, but not necessarily other parts of it, and I want to hear other songs that are like that one part, but not like the rest. But this feature is the best thing since sliced bread. You can select a specific part of a track, and I don't know how it does this, but it automatically shows you other tracks down below that have similar characteristics to that selected part of the track. Just another reason for you to go to the link in the description below and use Daniel50 at checkout to get 50% off the Epidemic Sound personal plan. Just remember to choose the annual personal plan at checkout. But back to what I was saying, once I used the ear tool, I didn't have to look very far as I just clicked on a few songs until it showed me this one here called Antidote X by Van Sandano. As soon as I listened to the beginning of this track, I knew right away that this was exactly what I was looking for. So of course I downloaded it and brought it into the timeline. So now that we've got the song in the timeline, obviously we're going to want to trim it up so that it cuts off on that portion of the video where we have that dramatic pause. So we'll use our blade tool and cut it here. And once we do that, this is what we have so far. This may look like your everyday run-of-the-mill camera, but don't let its appearance fool you. But with the Chronos 2.1, things look a little bit different. Okay, so we're getting somewhere. The beginning of the video for me looks and sounds good, but it is definitely a little bit abrupt and harsh when the song just randomly ends on that pause. So here is what we can do to fix this and make it sound a little bit more natural and pleasant. I started by duplicating the music track by holding Option on the keyboard and then clicking and dragging down. On our duplicate music track, I shortened it up just to cover this little area and extended it over the portion of the video where we have that dramatic pause. And then once again, by using the Option key on my keyboard, I can actually make little keyframes on our volume of the music track and drag down to fade out the music completely, leaving us with just this one little note. And just so you can actually hear what's going on, here is the single note isolated on its own. So now what I'm gonna do is select this audio track for that single note and right click. I'm gonna create a new compound clip and I can just call it note. And then I'm just gonna go over to the effects window and grab the Space Designer, click and drag that onto our compounded clip. And generally the Space Designer is used to add reverb to audio. So this is what my voice sounds like with a Space Designer added. It makes it sound like I'm in a much larger space with lots of echo. And I actually use the Space Designer more than you might think when it comes to editing videos, because this is what our single note sounds like with the Space Designer added. And just to refresh your memory, this is what we had before. And here it is again with the reverb applied to that extra note. Very subtle little thing that can actually make a big difference, but let's move along to the second half of the video and finding a song for that. Now, because I've been using Epidemic Sound for like 5 years now, I'm pretty familiar with a lot of the artists on there. I know Ava Lowe has some pretty catchy sort of hard-hitting beats. So I just went through some of Ava Lowe's tracks until I found this one here called I Like Your Suit, and I brought that into the timeline. I'm gonna chop up the clip to where the beat actually drops and line it up with the start of our slow-mo montage. And now you might be thinking, great, this is all done, we can export that and throw it up on YouTube. But before we do that, I wanna play this for you one time and I wanna see if you can identify what might be missing. What sounds off specifically about the transition between these two songs? If you can figure it out, let me know in the comments below. But with the Chronos 2.1, things look a little bit different. So if you didn't catch it, these two songs are actually in two totally different keys. If you listen carefully, you can actually hear that the first song is in a slightly lower key, and then when we get into that second song, it jumps up to a higher key. I can almost guarantee that anybody with a background in music would have heard that right away. Otherwise, for most people, it's just a subconscious thing where the two songs don't match. It sounds really off, and I'm gonna show you how to fix it. To fix this, all we need to do is go into our effects panel once again and grab the pitch shifter and drag it onto our second song. I'm gonna go in here to the pitch shifter window and I'm going to drop the semitones just by a little bit to -1, and this will be enough to bring the second song into the same key as the first. This is what it sounds like now with the pitch correction, but with the Chronos 2.1, things look a little bit different. And now let's listen one more time to what this could have sounded like if we didn't add the pitch correction to the second song or the reverb to that ending note of the first song. But with the Chronos 2.1, things look a little bit different. Now, I don't know about you, but for me, this makes or breaks the video. Without these subtle little things to take it to that next level, I feel like that entire dramatic pause and everything just falls apart. There's no cohesiveness. The transition between the two songs is just totally jarring, but it truly is the subtle little editing things like that that make all the difference. Thank you so much for watching this video, and thank you to Epidemic Sound for sponsoring this video. If you would like to get that 50% off the personal plan, then use the code Daniel50 at checkout when you go to the link in the description, and be sure to choose the annual personal plan at checkout. That is Daniel50 for 50% off. Follow me on Instagram at daniel.schiffer, and as always, I will see you guys in the next video. This may look like your everyday run-of-the-mill camera, but don't let its appearance fool you. This specialty camera is only used for one very specific purpose. In 3, 2, 1. With a quote-unquote normal camera like my iPhone, dumping coffee beans out onto the table doesn't look like anything special. In fact, neither does this egg or this stale piece of toast. But with the Chronos 2.1, things look a little bit different. Now tell me, what would you film with this camera?